Go.
Let's go. Episode 297 of A to the show. We've been doing
Yep.
this 297 days now, traveling around the world, and now we're in Florida with Danny Vega. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes.
Thanks for
Uh,
thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming. So Danny, you have some unpopular opinions, and these unpopular opinions get you to lose followers. What are some unpopular opinions you think you have that
Oh my
people might
gosh.
hate you for?
Well, there are many. I could start with the fact that we're unschoolers. So we never have put our kids in school. That's definitely unpopular. We've also historically been, voluntarious politically. So like we don't participate really much in the system. We think the whole thing's rigged. And a lot of it is used to like, I'm on the blue side, I'm on the red side, I'm on the, this side or that side. And that's not how the world works. The world, when you speak to people, to human beings, and this is why, unfortunately, it's sad because we've had to change this. We had a plan for our children. Like, we were going to take them around the world. And part of it was because my college roommate came from a different background than me. He had a lot of money. And when we would take like art humanities and music humanities, he would be like, oh, I saw that. I was there. I saw that, and there's a difference between seeing something in a book and being somewhere. But the other difference that happens when you travel as a child is you become ignorant proof. Because if let's say people say,
Right.
well, this is how people act in this country. They're terrible over there. This is bad. And then you're like, that's not true. I was just eating with them the other day. Like I was over there. So it kind of sucks because now with the travel restrictions, we've had to change that because like we've gone to Mexico 4 times in the last 6 months. And believe it or not, it's worse now than it was last year. Like last year, the kids clubs were open. Now the kids clubs, they're making them wear masks outside. Like if you go to Egypt, and this is hilarious because there was this guy that was there from the United States, and it was really funny to watch because he comes from this view of like, I can't believe you people aren't wearing masks. And like all the Egyptians, he's going up to them and they're like, you understand why you shouldn't be wearing a mask? And they're like, no, brother, God takes care of us. And I'm like, yeah, God takes care of us. Like, that's what we think,
Mhm.
and it's crazy. So that's obviously, I don't think it's, I don't think it's ethical to force people to put things on their face. I don't, I'm very much, individual liberty that way. What else is unpopular about it, what
Yes.
we believe?
Well, the first thing you said was really interesting. What do you say?
The
About the
Being
being
unschooling?
rigged. Yeah, the
on
Oh,
education. Sorry,
oh yeah.
before that.
Education is
Yes,
unschooling. Yeah. And
unschooling.
it's not a great way to describe it because it really only
Okay.
describes what we don't do. It
Hmm.
doesn't describe really what we do, but at least you know that we're not fans of the school system.
neither are
Uh,
we, yeah.
So are
to
they
me,
homeschooled?
Yeah, I mean, but like that's
Yeah.
the other one that it's like I don't like the term because
yeah.
historically we've never been home. Like, a lot of the time, we're at the library, we're at, the museum, we're at all these different places. The boys, like, let's say yesterday they did 3 hours with their tutor. On Thursday they do an hour with the tutor, and then 3 hours of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. They do chess club, they do ukulele, they do jujitsu every day. So we have all these things. And then Fridays, sometimes I take like an hour or two and do stuff with them. This Friday is really exciting because this Friday is a papi day. We call it a papi day. And that's just a day that they're with me. So we're going to go fishing at 6:30. We're going to go to the gym at 8:30. We're going to come home and make breakfast together. And then we're going to go on a hike for like an hour or two.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to do Greek and Roman gods. And then I'm going to tell them an inspirational story about a guy who led an Arctic expedition. And then we're going to make kintsugi. You guys know, have you ever heard of kintsugi, the
Yeah,
Japanese art?
it's repairing broken pottery or like plates and stuff with this gold.
Yes, exactly.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna buy like at Walmart some cheap like pottery, and then we're gonna hit it with the hammer, like or something. Of course, they're gonna love that. They're gonna. I have a 6-year-old. He's gonna be 7 in June, and a 10-year-old. And then you have to file off the edges a little bit because you really want the edges to be seen more. You don't want it to just fit right back in. So when you take your glue, your glitter glue, and you put it back, there's enough of a space for you to see the cracks, and there's a lot of lessons that you can put to that. And then we're gonna make some paper frogs and stuff. So like, you know, we do so much, and like we believe that education and learning is natural. The school system kills curiosity.
And destroys creativity. To be honest, the schedule that you just described is probably more than I've ever studied
done in school. Yeah, I want to go to your school. I wish I grew up.
Hey, let me tell you guys.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this. This is like now, because we did research for like a year before my son was even born. We were looking into this. I can honestly say now, based on the evidence that I've seen with my children, that my boys would be better off if I did nothing than put them in school. Like if I just did absolutely nothing. And I know it sounds crazy, but I know, because school kills learning. You know, school is indoctrination, which in Latin, it means to put in to something. And then, you know, education in Latin means to bring out of darkness, to bring out of the darkness of ignorance and into the light of understanding. And it's no wonder that people believe the things that they believe with no evidence, no logic, there's no rhetoric, instead of testing ideas and then having a knowing versus like a belief, which beliefs can be very dangerous if you're getting the wrong input. So
especially when you're growing up.
I have a question. What about in terms of friends? Because for me, school, though it killed like some of that curiosity that I had, I did develop a lot of friendships there, and it was very important for me in terms of my social growth,
development. Yeah, that's a great one. And this is the one that ironically has become like the complete opposite of what I thought. I thought I was going to have to work really hard to quote unquote socialize my children. First of all, let's just compare the two. So I remember going back in school when I was a kid, and the first thing that I was told is, we're not here to socialize. You know, like, shut up, we're not here to socialize. You know, and like if I talked, I would be put in the corner. And I remember like I would get my report cards and it would say, you know, Danny's very smart, but he's very talkative. And so we're not encouraged to socialize at school. And on top of that, the socialization that happens in school is very unhealthy, because we're getting all of our social cues from people in our, not only our age group, but our exact age, which I think you guys would agree, like a bunch of 10-year-olds don't know crap compared to, you know, having a group. Like, for example, in the homeschool group that they go to, it's like a tutoring place. It's a magical, I can't even find this anywhere if I tried. It's unbelievable what God has just put in our lives. And you have kids of, you know, 3 to 4 year age differences. So you have the older kids stepping into more of a mentorship position so that they learn the material better. You have the younger kids looking up to those older kids, and they're getting their social cues from them and the teacher, which there's 5 kids to 1 teacher. That's the rule in the place we go to. So now you look at my sons, and the first thing that people say when my sons walk up to them, because they always walk up to you, they look you right in the eye, they shake your hand. They don't have this fear of adults that I think is kind of fostered in school, because, you know, you go into a classroom, you have to ask to go to the bathroom. It's like, excuse me, can I go to the bathroom? Can I use the you know, can I relieve myself, you know? And you're doing that all the way until you're 18. And then they're like, all right, go out into the world, go be a free thinking, independent human being. And but wait, just a week ago, I was asking to go to the bathroom. So now if you look at the homeschool situation, it could very well be a situation that could shelter you. That's definitely possible. So if you look, I was just talking about this, I was on my run and I was asking a friend of mine who just, her 15-year-old son just took the Latin test, and him and everyone in his group got honors, which is amazing. And I think Latin is a language that we all need to know, because language is used against us a lot. And languages can be used to cast spells on people. I'm a big believer in that. Like you say things and then you just don't even understand what the meaning is, and it's programming you to think a certain way. So I believe in Latin, and she told me that the reason they did so well was that he had a partner who was really good at it, and it was a little bit ahead of him. So he was able to teach him. And so we always look for that, because here in Tampa, it's amazing. We didn't know that we were going to have the homeschool community that we have here. But like, if we go with the Christian homeschooling group, there's some issues that we have with that because we don't want to impose the Christian belief on them. That's something that is done at home. And that's something that they should be given the information so that we know no matter what, you're going to put your worldview on your kids, but you want to try to give them as much autonomy to learn these for themselves. But then if you contrast that with the opposite, which is the unschooler groups, a lot of them are atheists. And then all of a sudden it goes from, you know, censoring certain things to bringing in other things that I don't like. Like, you don't know, I don't want you to teach my child about transgender stuff when, you know, they were 8 years old. So like, we're in this weird place where we want our kids to have freedom and we're Christian, but we don't fit in this group or this group. So we have to find, I call it a la carte education, because like whatever we like, we take it, and wherever there's logos, that's where we want to be, you know? So the one thing that I'll add, the last
I want to avoid dogma.
yeah, you want to avoid dogma, because dogma is really just belief. It's really like, why do you believe that? Well, because, you know, but it's never like,
because they say so. Yeah, exactly. Because everyone thinks that.
Yeah. And like, if you look at a lot of the time, our view of a homeschooled child, you might have had that one kid that you knew that was homeschooled that was a complete weirdo. And just keep in mind that that child is not socially awkward because they're homeschooled. They're probably homeschooled because they're socially awkward. And there wasn't a place for them in the public school system. They put them in remedial classes because they thought a different way or they learned a different way. And they could be brilliant, but because socially they're inept, they're put in, you know, a different group. So that's kind of the whole view with what we do with them. And honestly, I think it's working out great. That I'm getting to a point where it's really bad. Like you can't tell me anything, you know, because it's like, I see the fruits now. I see the fruits, like I see them growing, and I see how in the pandemic, my oldest last year, he taught himself how to solve Rubik's cubes, how to beatbox, how to do origami. And now when he picks something up, now graffiti, he's doing graffiti now. And like all of these things are things that he taught himself. And he's teaching me what he learned by using the internet, by using all this stuff. It's just amazing to see when you unleash a child and you don't get in their way, what they're capable of.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
That's amazing.
I really like what you said about not getting in their way, because in terms of being schooled, there's a lot of times where, you know, there's a grade for everything you do, and that kind of gets in your way. It's like, how am I going to get good at, you know, solving a Rubik's Cube when everything I do gets graded? Like, what if I do it poorly? That means I'm going to get bad grades.
Yep.
Right? No one wants to live with that conditioning in them. So it's great to hear that they're doing all those exciting things without that barrier.
Yeah, they get burnt out by the time they go to high school because their parents are like, well, we got to stay ahead of the game because someone told me that at 7 you had to do this. And then, you know, what if I waited 2 more years to do that subject, and it would go from a 1-year process to a 2-week process because of their stage of brain development? And it could be very well that they're ahead of the game in something. You know, it's amazing to see that, man. Like it's just a beautiful thing. So if you guys have kids, or if you ever do have kids, which I think that's what we're put here to do, is have children, you know, do relationships, then, you know, you're going to see that if you homeschool them, that like the only thing holding you back is your fear. First, you have to like get over your own fear. And then you're like, I'm doing this. And then the next thing you have to deal with is your family and everybody around you. Because they're going to be like, what do you mean you're homeschooling? You know, like what could possibly come good from you, let's say, having a farm and having your child like raise your goats or raise, you know, plants. What good could come of that? How is he going to learn calculus? I'm like, oh, excuse me. Well, tell me what calculus you do every day. And then the whole thing is like, oh, you can't use your calculator. Well, yes, I can. I have my calculators right here. My phone is my calculator. And I'm not saying, you know, if you want to go into math, go into math. But I'm just here saying like the whole idea that school makes you well-rounded and all that crap is not true, because everything that you learned, you already forgot unless you were interested in it. So.
And I think a lot of the schooling is outdated. Just we all been talking about this all the time. The education material and how they're doing it. All these kids, I work with a lot of kids, and they just are on Zoom all the time, on their iPad all day. If it's not watching videos, it's for the classes. and
there's no doing, right? There's no application.
There's no
just
moving.
Like watch, consume, and don't do.
don't do anything. And there's like just you describing like doing movement with your kids and moving around and getting their brains going. That's amazing. We'll talk about movement later, but I want to know, what do you think about colleges? Do you think you want them to end up going to universities, or do you think even that is a sham?
Honestly, like, you're talking to someone who did the whole thing. I went to Columbia University. I wasn't supposed to go there. My quarterback sent them the game film. I didn't even know where Columbia was when they recruited me. I thought it was in DC, District of Columbia, you know, like I was this little Cuban kid from Miami. I didn't know anything. And I got my master's. So you're talking to I should be the biggest advocate for the university sham from anybody. At this point, if they want to go to college or university, they better have a very good plan to present to me. And I'm going to sit there like a judge and really tell them, okay, I agree. I think the university is now a very toxic place where you're fed this reality. For example, a lot of the time, now my kids, I tell them, like, if I was on your block growing up, you would be my rich friends, you know, like. And so now they get to college, and a lot of the time they get subsidized housing, and then they get really nice apartments. A lot of parents will, you know, help them with the financial of the apartment, and the apartment is like super beautiful. And then they graduate from college, and then they have to go into the real world where they're making, you know, $30,000 a year, and, you know, getting on the hamster wheel, and all of a sudden they can't afford that apartment. They you know, they have to downgrade. And so for me, for example, one alternative that I really like, it's called Praxis, and it's a program where every company that's involved either has 50 employees or less, or if it's part of a big company, it's a division with 50 employees or less. And what you do is, for a year, you take 20 hours of online classes, and then you do 20 hours of working for the company, and you're getting paid to work for the company, so you can pay your way through your classes, and now you have no debt, which to me, one of the biggest, it's like, it's pure theft, is loans with interest. That's something that came out of, you know, the Renaissance, that, you know, it's funny, the Catholic Church started to do that, and they were like, that used to be a mortal sin. But then they were like, oh, well, if it's 5%, then it's okay. And then it kept going up and up and up. And now we live in a system where, I mean, slavery is, you know, we see it left and right, like slaves walking everywhere. I'm a slave. I have still like $50,000 in loans that I have to pay. So a lot of the people that go through that program, for example, find a job at that company. So now let's say you come out of high school, you're 18. You come out, you're 19 or 20. You're working for a company, you're making money, you're paying your rent, and your friends are having keggers and getting into debt and not learning anything but things that are nonsense and not real. You know, to me, I'm like, wow, that's a totally different life, you know, and you're free and you're doing work, which, again, we're put here, you know, to have kids, but we're also put here to work and to add value to the world. And if you don't have the freedom to decide your own path and add value to the world, you're going to be put into the hamster wheel. You're going to be put into the grinder, where you're just going to think that, you know, 30 years from now, you have a 401k that's hopefully going to take care of you. That's not the life that I want for myself or my kids. So yeah, university to me is whack, man. University is just like, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an engineer, absolutely. But let's say you want to do marketing, you get a marketing degree, and, you know, the return on the investment is terrible. The only thing that, you know, maybe it helps you get a marketing job, but what's better than doing your own marketing or trying to work as an apprentice somewhere for a marketing firm? Like, everything changes, like we said before, when you talk to person. If I see someone coming in, let's say I'm a guy who owns a business. This guy comes in, he says, sir, I'd like a meeting. You know, he doesn't have a resume. He doesn't have, you know, any type of experience, but he comes in and he makes this whole thing to me. Like, I'm going to be a fly on the wall. I'm going to be, what do you want me to do? Sweep? I'll do anything. And all of a sudden, like, you give him a chance. And then that child, you know, more and more companies, I think, are getting hip to the fact that, like, a college degree is just a signaling mechanism that you're not completely brain dead. Congratulations. You were able to do something for 4 years. and you were able to finish it, and you're probably literate. And that's about
something
That's so savage. You're so savage, Danny.
Yeah, basically something about the university that I would support about like going to college and school is just that they would teach you a certain type of skill set. But the system that you mentioned about how you would raise your kids and stuff, I feel like that's even a better or more improved way to teach that skill set for your kids, that you don't and you don't have to pay, you know, like $30K a year or whatever for them. So yeah, I do believe that the universities and the school system is, you know, an overpriced sham. And especially with nowadays, like once you graduate, even if you have a degree or whatever, like whatever you've educated yourself in, you're gonna have to go through like an internship period or like a small phase where you have to learn what the hell the company is about, because the university doesn't teach you that. It doesn't like say, it's like, all right, so you're going to be applying to this company. It's like, okay, let's teach you how you can get employed by this company and like what kind of skills exactly you're going to need. No, they don't even teach you the specific skill set. They just teach you general things that you could use. So maybe, okay, analytical skills and maybe critical thinking. But you can also do that through the homeschooling that you were mentioning. And to be honest, the psychology behind it is what intrigues me, especially since you were saying how your sons, when they approach someone, they shake their hands and look them in the eye. It's like when I was their age, I wouldn't dare look someone in their eye. It's like it's like I didn't have that confidence, and I'm pretty sure when we were talking about this, the school systems, like it's basically a disciplinary system where you're forced into, you know, you have to take permission, you have to ask for everything, you can't you
have to trust authority.
Action. Exactly. You just have to follow authority and just believe whatever they say is true. And then later on, I've realized, like after going through college and interacting with people, I mean, just because someone's older than me doesn't mean they're smarter than me. That's something I've realized for sure.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah.
Something I really liked about what you said, Danny, was when you said, if I left them on their own, they'd probably be better off. And I really like the idea because, especially now, because there's a lot of like self-help and a lot of advertising on how you should be better, you know. And like Saeed was mentioning too, it's there's so much of it that's just like, oh, this is an authority figure. He's done it well, so I must listen to him. I must do whatever he does. And then again, you lose that autonomy. You lose that ability to critique things. You lose that ability to question things. And it's great to see that there is an alternative, that, okay, you could just be on your own and you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. You'll figure out how to deal with the problem of being self-disciplined, how to deal with the problem of enjoying things, how to deal with your anxiety. You can figure all those things out on your own. You don't need that authority, though it may help.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yes. Specifically,
sometimes the authority. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to mention a small thing about the stressful environment they would be in school. So you said that for your kids, there's only 5 kids to each teacher, while in school systems there's like 30. That alone is stressful. That alone just is a heavy burden on the kid and the teacher themselves. So
I met yesterday when I got to the tutoring place. The math teacher came out, and I was just talking to her because she was kind of new, and she's like, "This is amazing. This is so much better." She's like, you know, I would teach kids in school and I would have 3 3-hour blocks or 3 2-hour blocks. And by the time I got to the third 2-hour block, I'd be like, did I say this to you guys? You know, because she's like a broken record. Can you imagine how boring that is for a teacher who wants to like actually teach their kids? And she's like, now I have all these different ways that I can teach children. And I remember each child so much more because I know their specific situation. I mean, wow, like what a beautiful world. I think like despair is something that this control system pushes on us. Like, you know, everything from it's just this thing where like you're insignificant and you're not useful unless, you know, you're part of the system. And that's a problem because like the minute that you mess up, you're just like, I'm worthless. You know, like I'm nothing without like my guide or whatever. Like that's why the rote memorization is terrible, because it doesn't teach you how to think. It teaches you what to think. And like if you learn how to think, like like I said with my son, it's unbelievable. It doesn't matter what he picks up now. I know he's going to teach it to himself because he's motivated, and that's something that, you know, internal motivation is where you learn, you know, and like, since he's motivated, he's going to get it wrong. He's going to get pissed off. I'm going to hear him and he's going to be like, I can't believe this. I can't get it. And then, like 8 hours later, like when, like if you were to go to school, one of the other things that happens is like when you're done on Saturday and Sunday, or when you're in the summer, or when you graduate, learning is done. I mean, guys, I've had learning up to here. I don't want any more learning, you know? But when you have an environment where you're encouraged to follow whatever you follow, learning never stops. So we don't really have a summer, but we don't do 6 hours a day of school. You know, we might do like 1 or 2 hours a day on some days. We might get 4 or 5 some other days. But school is always happening. Like when they go to the store and they save their own money to buy themselves something, they have to count their change. They have to pay for it. All of those things get taught. And it's like, oh, how did you learn that? I didn't teach it. You know, he taught it to himself. I mean, like you said, the confidence to walk up to someone like that is because I think is all part of that.
Yeah, it's amazing, Danny, what you're doing, just hearing all of this. I mean, everyone needs to put their kids in schools that teach them how to think. Right, as opposed to what to think. And I think the biggest cruelty in our America, at least, is that the smartest people are taught to become specialists, as being taught to become teachers so they can teach the next kids. They're taught to make money for people who are making more money on top of them.
More.
So it's a really messed up situation we're in, and I'm so happy you're so smart and also so swole. So let's move it on. Tell us about your workout, Danny. Tell us about your workout routine.
So like I've always been into this. I mean, when I played college football and then I got my master's at UF, my first career, I was the head strength and conditioning coach for VCU basketball in Virginia. And I did that for a few years. I didn't make much money. So then I came home to Miami to chase money. And I did pharmaceutical sales for 3 years. And then I can't believe me now, it looks back and it's just like, wow, I can't believe how brainwashed I was. And then because I'm like, everything, I stand against everything that they do now, you know, like, I mean, everything, all of the, well, I don't want to even get into it because I don't want to mess up your podcast.
I know exactly what you're going to say, but you won't mess it up, dude. It's fine, dude.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Like if you look at the vaccine situation.
They're putting drugs in us. They're putting chemicals in us.
Yeah. And it's like the body health. And I'm going to go on this soapbox real quick and I'll step back off. But I just like, because I can't stand this. We have so much power. We have so much the ability to heal ourselves from what we eat and how we live. And we're being told, and our doctors are being trained, that you are this system that's almost like a robot, that if you identify symptom X, then you take this pill and it cancels symptom X without looking at the whole picture and what that does to the rest of your system. Whereas if you just understand that, like, you're low on magnesium, or you need some selenium, or there's vitamins and minerals that help a bunch of processes in your body, you could be healthy and you don't need a doctor and you don't need the healthcare system. So that's how I view health. And that's why, like, I did medical device sales after pharma for like 10 years. And the last year I knew that I was quitting. I was saving my money and it was unbearable to deal with it. Cause every day, like, waking up and just being like, I can't believe the waste and, you know, this whole system. But so I've always lifted, I've always worked out. What I like to do now, I follow a ketogenic diet, like pretty much eat mostly meat. And like I wake up, I usually, up until
even that would be controversial at this point.
Yeah, the
meat. Oh my gosh, the
Just
meat. Oh, forget it. Yeah, like, okay, don't eat processed food, but eat this processed burger that we're giving you that's better than meat.
Yeah, it's made of soy.
The natural meat that we get. But no, you're gonna eat this burger, and that's what Bill Gates wants, is for everybody to be eating fake burgers and chemicals. And it's like,
Danny.
By the way, he's getting a divorce right now.
Yes, dude.
Yeah, I just saw that this morning.
I wonder why.
Divorcing his husband, his wife. Um, so
Relax.
I saw a really funny thing like that says that Bill Gates' wife is really Kevin Kline, the actor, which I thought was hilarious. Like, have you seen Kevin Kline? Where's Kevin Kline? Yeah, so like up until this challenge, I usually would do, I lift 4 days a week, and then I'll do like 1 or 2 days of like sprinting stuff, and I walk every day. Walking is amazing for your brain, for your cardiovascular health. But ever since starting, so this is what we talked about before we got on the air, the 75 Hard. It's basically this guy, Andy Frisella. He's a CEO. He does the MFCEO podcast. He's a CEO of First Form, like these supplements, and came out with this really cool challenge in 2019. And I had seen it, and I never did it because I'd done a million challenges. But my wife has never, she hates challenges. Like she'll live a certain way, but if you put that on paper and say, this is what you're going to do, she'll be like, no, because she's a super rebel like me. So she was inspired by women that were doing it. And so we started it. And so it's a simple challenge. You wake up every day, you have to do 10 pages of reading on a real book. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to take a progress picture. You have to do 2 45-minute workouts, 1 indoors, 1 outdoors, and they have to be separated by like 3 hours. So then you have to follow a diet. So whatever diet you choose, you have to follow that diet, and there's no cheating and no alcohol for 75 days. And if you break any of those on any given day, you have to start back on day 1. So now my schedule is different because now, for example, today I did my morning workout outside. So I did my running and walking. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to be doing a mobility session with my buddy who's helping me open up my hips and my knees because I'm doing jujitsu again. So now I'm only lifting 3 days a week. I'm doing jujitsu 4 days a week, and I'm doing mobility twice a week. And this is not the typical person, so I don't expect. I have my own business, but I love to work out. So like I get it. Like not everybody, but if you just do, for me, like the best thing for people to do is I think you need to have resistance training. So I like 3 full body workouts, and the reason why I like full body versus like let's say you do chest Monday, back Tuesday, things like that, is I find a lot of the time. Especially with dudes like to put legs on Friday, and then when their weeks get complicated, they miss their Friday workout, and then it's all of a sudden they haven't trained their legs for like 6 weeks. So
you got to do legs on Monday. You got to do legs on Monday first thing.
Yeah, I like that, but I also like because when you get I've been lifting weights since I was 14 years old, so we're talking about 26 years now.
Wow.
And the more intramuscular coordination you have, so the longer you've been lifting, the less it takes to stimulate a muscle, which is a good thing, but it's also the less it takes to tax a muscle and overtrain a muscle. So it's better for me to train more frequently and do let's say a little bit of legs Monday, a little bit of legs Wednesday, a little bit of legs Friday, than to do all my legs Monday, and then after the 3rd exercise I'm not really getting much out of it, and then all of a sudden then I have to wait for next week. So that's how I do it. Diet is the most important thing. I really think that, like, for example, today I won't eat until lunch. So my breakfast will be at 12 p.m. My dinner will be at 5:30 p.m. And then I have my daily snack, which is at 7:45. It's my buddy's company. It's called Keto Brick. And it's 1,000-calorie brick that looks like this. And it's actually, there's one right here. So my wife has half of a package. So this is what it looks like in the package. And then out of the package, you see this thing? It's like you bite into it. It's kind of hard, but it's very ketogenic and it's delicious. Like this is my favorite flavor. This is peanut butter. So it's like...
How many calories?
1,000 calories in this thing.
1,000 calories.
So I eat one of these a day. And I could cut it up and I make it into cereal. Like I put it with coconut milk or goat milk. I love goat milk. And like that to me... that's what scratches my itch for like sweet, because it's not even that sweet. Like the flavor comes from the protein that's so you have protein powder, MCT powder, which is medium chain triglycerides. It's the best type of fat that you can consume, especially if you're on a low carb diet, because it gets used quickly. And then it has cacao butter, which is like the butter made from chocolate, and I mean it's delicious. Like if you're
does everything.
yeah. So that's my diet. I mean it's very simple. 2 meals a day plus my Keto Brick. We call it meat and bricks. That's my diet. Meat and bricks diet.
Right.
I want to backtrack a little bit, Danny, because I really liked when you mentioned in terms of medicine how people will be like, oh, there's symptom X and organ Y, and you just target that thing,
Bill,
and they completely forget about
this medicine.
The entire system. But moreover, like they also do that in terms of individuals. You're individual X and system Y, and this is what you do, and there's nothing else. They don't teach you about how you should interact with the environment in a certain way. So what I really liked about that challenge is that there's the outdoor and the indoor, and that makes a tremendous difference for your mental health, at least, and even for your physiology. Like the way you interact with the sun and the way you interact with trees and just the wind around you, that really affects your growth as a person. And not enough people talk about that. So I salute you for bringing this to people's attention and awakening them, if that's the
well, let me just say, I just want to comment on that because I think you're totally right, man. If our modern lives, in my opinion, are designed to make us question the existence of God, and so God doesn't exist, and so because God doesn't exist, I'm floating around, and there's no hope, and we're looking down at our phones, and then what happens when you put your phone down, you go outside, you look up, and when you see like the nature, when you see God's creation, there's no way that you can deny that you are put here for a purpose. And I mean, that's to me like, so it's like funny when I see people living in little boxes in the city, and don't get me, that was me. I'm not criticizing them, but it's funny like when those people tell people out in the country, for example, like how they're supposed to live, and the people in the country are living so much happier, like they may not have the money, but like I saw a meme not too long ago. It was like, somebody tell these poor people that how terrible their lives are, and they're like these African people, like hunting, and they're with their family all day. They don't go to a little box to learn and stuff. And so going outside, being outside with nature, disconnected, is a huge thing that people should be doing. And now that the whole thing with the virus, vitamin D is so important. We know that. Go outside. The whole stay home, stay safe is like, it's like kill yourself, stay safe. It's like that's exactly what it is. Like, because you don't interact. If I see you and we see each other on the street, we shake hands and we hug. Our epigenetics are interacting with each other. Our genes are immediately changing. Like my microbiome is getting your germs, and so we have two immune systems. We have innate, which is like my nose hairs and my underarm hairs and all the things that are built to keep us safe. But then our the second type of immune system, or our acquired immune system, comes from everything that we do in life, interacting with the soil, interacting with our neighbor, and that's how we get strong. And the minute we start to pull back on that, and then we add a little sprinkle of fear and anxiety, which can really impact health outcomes, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, how is this not killing us? What you're telling us to do, to separate from each other, to breathe in our own, toxins that we just breathed out, and to stay inside with recirculated air. It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Absolutely, yeah. It does not make sense, and it is very bad for us.
I mean, what about the high infection rates and the high death rates, and like all these people basically who do have weak communities, immune system, and like they can't handle getting COVID.
I'm so happy you brought that up, man. We shouldn't just talk about one side. We should talk about everything. So like, let's say I hate this because it's like I'm nobody, but I think anybody with a brain would have approached this a little bit differently. Like from the beginning, when we didn't know what it was, and all we had was projections that 2 million people were going to die from some think tank in London that said that 2 million people are going to die if we don't do this, if we don't do that. Then that's when I would have been like, okay, just to be safe, let's have the old people, the people who have pre-existing conditions, which unfortunately in this country is 88% of us have some sort of metabolic dysfunction. That came out. That was actually a study that came out in January 2020.
Is this Americans?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it from the food? Is it from the food that they eat?
Well, they would never say that it's from the food.
They never want to bring down McDonald's. They would never want to. No.
It's like,
come on.
Yeah, they would never say that. But like, I think you're absolutely right. Like the food is the number one thing, because it's like all of a sudden, if you are type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, which happens a lot. I mean, what countries are you guys from?
I'm from Lebanon. We're actually all Lebanese.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, just so you know, this is really cool. My cousin, so this is not the same line, but my cousin's father, who married my aunt, which is my dad's sister, he's Cuban, but he's Lebanese. So his father, they came over to Cuba.
Yeah, that sounds like a very Lebanese kind of thing to say. It's like my brother of the sister to the... That's actually what we... I'm seeing the relation there.
Yeah, like it's funny because like when they got to Cuba, their last name was Farah. And then they changed it to Faroy. I don't know why, which that's just interesting. But like, if you look at a lot of the countries in the Middle East, diabetes is terrible. Lots and lots of sugar. I have an opinion. I think a lot of that is due to, like, if you tell people they can't drink alcohol, they're gonna just smoke hookah and eat sugar all day. You know, so that's just my theory. And mind you, I don't drink alcohol. I'm sober for 9 years in August. But yeah, so like, so what were we saying about the pre-existing conditions, those people should have the option from their employer. They should have had the option to work from home if they were afraid, because even within all of the pre-existing conditions, you still see a lot of people that tend to do well, even when they get infected. And I think what that comes to is the reason we don't know who is, doing bad and who's not is if we were to just do a genetic test with every person that was born, just a quick swab when they're born, get their genes, and then see all of the mutations that they have. You always have one copy from your mom, one copy from your dad. And so, like, for example, me, I have one gene, it's a mutation called COMT, and I have homozygous, which means I got two bad copies. Heterozygous would be one good copy, one bad copy. And based on your lifestyle, which is amazing, your epigenetics is basically how your genes turn on and off. So you can have bad genes and they never turn on because you live a healthy lifestyle. But knowing what the potential is with your genes could tell you whether or not it's smart to take an experimental gene therapy being paraded as a vaccine, not even approved. But so those people should have the option. They should have had the option to stay home, but everybody else should have stayed out, because getting infected, for example, we know with children, like we had the virus last year in September. We went to the airport. It was the first time we ever put masks on. The only time we ever put masks on is when we travel. And we put our masks on. We got to Mexico. We did the hand sanitizer everywhere we went. We got back on the plane like little sardines. We came back home and we got our COVID because we were on top of each other. It didn't matter if we had the mask. It didn't matter. And my son's, it was literally 36 hours, because this virus, unlike the flu kills kids. It really does. It's really, really bad. Not kills them, but it really does hurt them. Versus the flu for an adult is nothing, because we've been exposed to these flus for so long that we get inoculated every year just from being exposed to them. Versus the kids, they haven't gotten that experience. But this flu, because it's a new antigen for the adult, it hits us harder than it hits the kids. So having a little bit of context would have been much more helpful. And so the deaths, I don't know what to say about them, because it's going to be interesting to see the all-cause mortality this year. Last year, when I was following this, I was actually able to see it. Now I can't find it anywhere, that we were trending to be the lowest amount of deaths in the last 3 years, 2017, 18, 19, 20.
Oh, wow.
2017 tended to be the worst. And the year before last year, we had 38 million cases of the flu. Last year, we had 1,800 cases of the flu. I mean, come on. That's so absurd.
Here,
wait, last year we didn't have the flu? You guys didn't have the flu?
Yeah, we had 1,800 cases of the flu. Pneumonia disappeared.
Would that be because people were staying at home due to the lockdowns and the regulations that were being imposed?
I think like now that we're looking at data like with lockdowns and we're able to compare cities that are locked down versus not locked down, they'll say the one thing that you'll hear on the other side, because like people who don't agree with me is like, oh, they have those numbers because they never really locked down. Like the places that were locked down, it's like, but then how do you explain these numbers in the places that weren't locked down that did very well? So the amount of a lot of it comes from a wrong
also political
diagnosis. Yeah, very political.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I hate that this became Republican and Democrat because like, now there's people that have the vaccine and they don't want to put the mask off. They don't want to take the mask off because they're afraid that they're going to be considered a Republican. Like how absurd is that? Like that's an actual article, I'm like, I can't believe that, you're going against your best wishes and your own health because of what people may think of you. So last year we saw pneumonia disappeared, and we always knew that pneumonia killed old people, but now that's putting into the COVID bucket, which by the way, this could be a whole different podcast, but like if you do a PCR test, this is crazy because a PCR test, the guy who actually invented it said that this was never made to diagnose illness. But on top of that, even let's say that the PCR test was actually designed to diagnose illness, we've only sequenced 88% of the genome of COVID-19. The human, this is genetics. The human genome is 95% similar to that of a chimpanzee. So that's just 5% difference. You get a chimpanzee versus a human. Imagine 12% difference. That doesn't tell me anything. And so when you do the PCR test, you do cycles because you're basically magnifying what you see. So if you do 40 cycles like they do in Canada, you're going to get a lot more positives. You can lower the cycles or increase the cycles, and then all of a sudden cases are going down, cases are going up. And
I read an article done by a mathematician who did the statistics. He did the calculations for it, actually. It turned out that the accuracy of the test, the real accuracy, is about 25%.
Yeah, so 75% false positives?
It wasn't 75% false positives only, but you had the false negatives too.
Oh, yeah.
So in the entire bubble, it was only it would get the right result about 25% of the time.
Wow.
That's crazy. Crazy.
Wow. All right. We're running out of time here, Danny. Wake the fuck up, everybody. Honestly, what's going on? Danny, I want to know, you have so many unpopular opinions. How do you stick by them in this time where everyone else is telling you, hey, you should think this, you should do this?
Man, I just think that like right now I'm seeing something really sad because I have a lot of friends in Canada and a lot of them are getting to the point where they're starting to buckle and they're like, they were not going to get the vaccine. If you choose to get the vaccine, that's awesome. But let's say you didn't because you use your adult brain and you said no. And now you're going to say, you're going to go along because how am I going to travel? How am I going to do this? And like, to me, I'm like, then I guess I'm not traveling, like there's a certain, like before I used to say, and I still pretty much believe this, but things have changed because before I used to say like, you do you, I do me, just leave me alone. Let's just do. But now we have so many people that if they would have actually stood up for themselves, we would not be in this position that we're in. Like, and everything that's happening is illegal. Like if anybody who goes to the store and they tell you you have to put your mask on to go inside the store, if I go with my mask off, you can't kick me out. I'm not trespassing because I am entering legally to do commerce. And so there's no law that says that I am supposed to put a mask on. And if you tell me there is one, then you're practicing medicine without a license because you're telling me to make a medical decision against my own wishes. And where's your medical degree? And then the whole thing now too is like, we don't have laws. We have the CDC. So it's like, well, the CDC said, I'm like, well, who voted exactly. for the CDC? So like, these things are things that are examples of why people should stand up for themselves. At the very least, you don't have to be a jerk about it. But like, if someone asks me to wear a mask, I just say, oh no, I don't have to. And most of the time they're like, wait, what do you mean you don't have to? And then I just keep walking. If someone says, why don't you have to? I'll just say, oh, I can't tell you. That's it.
Yeah.
And like, if you don't have to be a jerk about it, you don't have to be like, don't tell me what to do, America, you know, like all that stuff. Like, that's just stupid. That's just like, be a human being, smile at them. And, you know, yesterday I smiled at the guy walking into Walmart, and then he was like, oh, wait a second. Oh, can you put on a mask? And I just kept walking in. And when I came out, I said bye to him, and he didn't say anything to me. And it's like, most people, I think nowadays, because more and more we're being told, we're having our ability to directly communicate taken away. Not only because we only talk through Zoom, but even Zoom is an improvement over.
People are stuck in those echo chambers, right? Where they just go to those groups that resonate with the same ideas. They don't really.
They're not able to defend a position. They never have to get uncomfortable. And the minute that they start to get uncomfortable, whether you notice when you go to the store, the mask, I like to use it because it's perfect, because the store people half the time aren't telling you anything. It's other customers. You know, it's like you're doing their work for them, because not only are you not saying no, you're the enforcer. You're like the Jew in the concentration camp who's you know, filing the other Jews into like the gas chamber. You know,
not to that extreme. I don't want to make comparisons.
Well, you know what?
That
you know
was
what?
Really hard. Yeah, exactly.
Like Dostoevsky, for example, he used to argue that like a lot of the reason why society is the way it is because good men allow evil to happen. And like, if you take that view, it's a little bit more harsh, because it's like you're saying that things are wrong and it's my fault. And I'm like, yeah, I am. It's not their fault. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. That's what they do. Snakes are put on this earth. Snakes are gonna snake. You can't let them snake. You know, like you gotta stand up. And you know, for me, I believe, like, again, I have my own beliefs. I believe in God. I think that I'm covered. I think that I'm safe. And if I'm not, then at least I'll be able to look myself in the mirror. You know, because especially if you tell me to put my kids in a muzzle, and then I go along with it. If my son is anything like, my younger son is just like my wife. My wife never trusted adults, because she was always like, she always had this intuition, like, they think I don't know what they're talking about, but I know what they're talking about, you know. And God forbid, you know, my youngest wakes up, you know, when he's 18, he looks back and he's like, I can't believe they made me wear the mask. They would hate me. He would hate me because like he's just like my wife. My wife has resentment because of the way she was raised. So I don't want to do that to my kids, you know, and I want to teach them always to stand up for what is right, you know, to stand up against bullies, things like that. That's why they do jujitsu. They do jujitsu to stand up against bullies, but also to not be bullies, because when you're put in a chokehold every day, it teaches you humility. So, so yeah, that's what I think. It's important to be, you know, you gotta stand up for what you believe, you know, and it doesn't mean that you have to be a jerk. You just have to say no. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I want to kill you. You know, like I think Tupac said, like, just because I don't want you to eat with me doesn't mean I don't want you to eat. You just can't sit on this table. You go sit over there, but you're not going to sit on my table, you know?
Amazing.
I just want to say one thing. You know, there's oh man, there's just so much, like, it's
there's a lot of
a lot of it, but like, you know, I agree with you that there's a lot of historical tragedies that could have been avoided had people spoken up and had people said the right thing at the right time. And more so, you know, as above, so below. Even on an individual level, you need to be able to be accountable for yourself. You need to be responsible. You can't always take that victim mentality, and you have to say, well, this is happening to me because of me. And it also acts up on a bigger scale. So people need to talk to each other more. People need to argue more. People need to discuss why they should be or shouldn't be doing things. And, you know, Plato once said, you know, there's no greater evil than to hate reasonable discourse. You know, you don't ever want to be in a position where you put yourself in an echo chamber. And even when there's so many varying opinions, it's okay. We're human. We should be able to talk.
Yeah, I don't know what, like, remember back in the day, you guys, I don't know if you guys are kind of close to my age. I'm 40. I remember, like, in the cooler at work, it was always like, oh, don't talk to him. He's a Republican, or don't talk, he's a Democrat. But it was always like, it was a joke, you know. It was like, you know, you could joke back then, and it's like, oh, there's that crazy, you know, whatever. Look at what he believes. But it was never like, now it's like a meme that I saw. It's like a little kid. He's like pissed off, and it says, "Why don't you like what I like?" And it's like, who cares we could disagree. We could still love each other. Like, you know, I have friends who got the vaccine. I'm not like, oh, you're not my friend anymore. You know, like, because you got the vaccine and I didn't, and I don't think it's good for you. But like, you know, we have so much more in common. It just, again, it's another way to divide us, you know, to divide people. And that's why homeschool is so important, because, you know, you're able to not be in that, you know, I think it was Lenin who said, if you give me 3 years, I'm going to indoctrinate, I'm going to change their minds. But we give them 14 years. So imagine, that's a long time. And now Biden wants, with whatever the new plan is, he wants to add 4 years of school. I mean, yeah, that's one of the parts of the, it's like the building better families plan. It's never like the destruction of our culture plan. It's always like, you know, like the Patriot Act, you know, it's
the Patriot Act. We're watching out for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 years of extra school could work depending on what are the extra years that are going to be included and the prices and that kind of thing. So if he wants to reduce the cost of education, okay. I'm down. And if in those 4 years they're gonna teach kids how to be able to think for themselves, you know, entrepreneurial skills, maybe, do their taxes, exactly, how to do life, basically. Okay, maybe, yeah. I mean, it doesn't
maybe
need 4 years.
First 12 years first, right? Like,
Or maybe in these 4 years, like it's the start, and they're telling you, you know, the next 12 years are gonna be shit. You know, you're just gonna go into this stuff, and like, you're gonna have student loans, and so prepare yourself for this kind of stuff. So maybe
mentally prepare them for the what's the word, for the trauma they're about to experience. This is how you.
Danny, I just want to suggest something, because I think you'd be really interested in this. Have you ever heard about the Blue Zone region?
Blue Zone, is this for like the places that eat like vegetarian diets?
No, it's not necessarily a vegetarian diet. It's a place in Italy. I think it's called Sardinia, and they have like they have the highest aging population, like the highest population density of old people.
Yeah, that's from a study. That's from a famous study. I forget the name of the study that they looked at different groups, and the blue zones they have the most longevity. I'm kind of familiar with it.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I think it would be an interesting thing for you to look up, because a lot of it has to do with what you mentioned about how your epigenetics, I believe you mentioned, how it relates to the environment and what you eat. And you'll see how like those people, they'll age for 100, 110 just because of the way they eat and the way they live. And
so they, like in Spain, look at Spain, right? Like from 4 to 7 is your siesta, and then your dinner starts at 8. Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing?
And you take 3 hours to eat usually, because you're socializing with your friends. You're eating tapas, like you guys know, tapas are like the little small plates,
starters,
and like it gives you time to digest. Like here we get drive-through, we're eating it in the car as we're, you know, have like Fox News screaming at us, or CNN, and we're just like in this, you know, really stressful state, versus like you go to Italy and it's like, oh wait, I thought pasta was bad. Well, this pasta is made from wheat that they grew there. It's not GMO, you know, that like all of that there's a stronger connection to the food. There's a stronger connection to the land. So that's
the plates are tiny. They don't just shove carbs.
We have 11-inch plates and they have 8-inch plates, you know, and you know, my mom always told me like, eat everything on the plate. I just, a few years ago, learned that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so full. And then I was like, wait, I don't have to finish this. And I couldn't believe it. I was like 30 something, and I had just realized that I don't have to eat everything on the plate. Like I could put it away when I'm full, you know? I totally agree with that.
Yeah, specifically on that point about finishing your plate, for some reason I recently like tried to associate it with the theory I was trying to make up about how like when you have to finish your plate, I forgot what the theory was, but basically you'll always have to, you know, feel like you're incomplete. Like you always have to finish what you have. You know, if something is given, like if you have a task or some sort of objective that you want to complete, you have to finish it fully, and regardless of whether you're suffering through it or whatever, it's just like, you know, keep grinding in a sense, but not in a healthy way. And oh yeah, and one concept that I did try to associate it with. Obviously, this is not like it's not
financial advice. Yeah, gotcha.
No, it's not a study like a scientific study that has been complete or anything. It's just like me thinking in general. It's like, but it could also maybe relate to people who becoming overweight or having some sort of diabetes or anything, because and they're built with this. Yeah, they're indoctrinated since they're a kid to finish their plate, even though that it's it's more than they should. It's more than their fill.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like for example, here in the Arab world,
like the quitting mentality, like, oh, don't quit, don't be a quitter.
For me, it was my mom was like, just don't waste food, like, and she's
exactly.
Yeah, she'll be like, look, do you want this, like, and it's like a coffee mug. She's like, do you want this coffee mug? I'm like, no, I have enough coffee mugs. But she's like, what do I do with it? I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't want to waste the coffee mug. But like, there's actually science to what you're saying. So like, for me, because I ate so many years in a row that I would go past being full so I could grow, which I think is funny because people always tell me I'm eating so much. Well, obviously you're not eating enough if you're not growing. You have to eat more. It has to get uncomfortable. And I blew past that. So my hunger and satiety like mechanisms, I had to retrain. And so when I learned about mindful eating, you're talking about these external cues, like how much is on my plate? What time is it? Just because it's 12 o'clock doesn't mean it's lunchtime. Just because it's 8 o'clock doesn't mean it's breakfast. Yeah. So it's going back to listening to your body. And like, usually if you were to rate your fullness on a scale of 1 to 10, and you were at a 5, which means you could eat a little bit more possibly, but you could, if you had to stop, you could stop. That's like the perfect place. And mindful eating, it doesn't tell you, you don't use it to tell yourself when to stop eating. You use it to tell yourself why you think you need to eat. So I could say, well, right now I'm eating because this is my meal that she used to make me, and I'm nostalgic about it. I'm gonna eat past I'm full because it's delicious, and so many memories. Or you could eat it because you could admit that you're stress eating. I mean, it's not saying that you're gonna stop it, but you're at least saying, okay, I'm not really hungry right now, but man, this was a hard day, and that cookie is just gonna make my day just a little bit better, so I'm gonna eat it. But at least you're aware. Versus like all of a sudden, like what I always used to do, my wife would make fun of me because she said, I didn't know what leftovers were until I married her. And she's like, leave it for the leftovers. I'm like, no, I'm just going to eat it now. What are leftovers? So like now it's like you're able to step back. And she used to say like, it's like you don't even know you're eating the food and all of a sudden it's gone and you're like, how long was I out? Like it's true. Like it's like a blackout. But if you're being mindful, you're gonna be so much more comfortable. Like you would have enjoyed that meal so much more if you just stopped a little bit earlier. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing because like it's not easy, since I have this similar mentality where basically what is leftovers, because like, okay, like when it's dinner or lunch, I eat the meal, and then at night before I sleep, I'm like, I have to finish it, so that no one else eats it. I want it all for me.
Yeah. So there's lots of things that we could tell each other too. Like it's like, oh, it's not gonna be as good tomorrow if I heat it up.
Very true. Yeah. But like now it's like, because I know I'm stress eating, I know, and I'm aware about it, but it's just like it's a process, and it's taking me a while to get over. Especially I'm doing it by myself.
The awareness is super important. Even when it's like any problem, just being aware of like, okay, this is a problem that I'm dealing with, and I'm doing it this way. I feel like it takes away what I call compounded suffering. You're suffering the problem anyway, but there's that anxiety, like, why am I suffering this? I shouldn't be suffering this. I'm better than this. It's like, no, understand it first and deal with it slowly, and don't compound your suffering. One problem at a time.
That's a big Stoic saying, like Marcus Aurelius said, he's like, you don't have to make this a thing. Like, why are you mad about this? You don't have to. And like, it's all about like perception, like that's why I know we didn't get into Stoicism, but like I loved Ryan Holiday, like The Obstacle's the Way, because that was my first introduction into Stoicism before I read the actual ancient Stoics. And he broke it up into perception, action, and will. And so perception is like seeing the world as it is versus as you want it to be. So that's our biggest problem that we have now, is because it's like, why can't I do this? Why can't this? Why? Instead of, this is what it is. How am I going to respond to it? And then comes action. Marcus Aurelius also said, the only truth is action. So it's like, you say you're going to do this, then do it, you know, but you can't take the right action if you have a bad perception. We see people doing all types of action all the time, but their perception is terrible. And then will is basically, it's not your willpower, it's your ability to do the same thing over and over with no regard to the end. So like if you said, I want to lose 15 pounds in 3 months, and you know, the 3 months come and you've lost 10 pounds. Now you're like, oh, it's been 3 months. Why haven't I lost the weight? I did everything I was supposed to do. Instead of saying, did I do what I was supposed to do today? The things that I outlined for myself to lose the weight, did I do that? It doesn't matter what you lost, what you didn't lose, you know, it doesn't matter. It's just, you got to keep going. So I love that because, you know, if we see the world as we want it to see, as we want it to be, we're always going to be frustrated. We're always going to be like, oh, you know, I wanted this to happen, but no, that's not how it works. So like, I think Stoicism is really one of the only philosophies that teaches you, it's not just this thing with old people with beards that they're telling you, you know, it's abstract. I'm not interested in that. You know, like I'm interested in like, can you give me an operating system? Like give me like an operating system that I could follow that's going to teach me. Like, that's why Seneca, you know, I think it was 1 day or 1 week out of the month. It might've been 1 week. He was rich, but he would dress himself as a poor person. He would fast. He would be on the street. He would see what it feels like. And then he would ask himself at the end of the day, is this really what you feared? Is it really that bad? Like, how can someone be a goat herder in the desert? Like, you know how hard that is? Like, it's not easy to raise goats in the desert, you know? But you ask that person and they're like fully see God's creation versus someone here with like a suit who's making all this money and he's not happy because he thinks he's supposed to do this thing and he's viewing the world in a bad way. And it takes a lot of people a long time to realize that. And sometimes it's too late, but like you could do it right now. It's scary.
This reminds me of an analogy, like in Buddhism, there's this story about, there's a ton of short stories and some of them are true, some of them aren't. But the point isn't the truth, right? The point is the meaning of the stories. Yep. And one of the stories is that there was this one monk, he used to, you know, carry water every day from the well to the monastery, and he'd just speak to the master every single day in hopes that he would one day become the master. And then he did it for so long, eventually he instead of carrying the water in those, you know, the buckets, he had his stuff in those buckets and he walked away with his stuff. And the whole point is, like you mentioned earlier, you can let go of everything. You can let go of speaking, you can let go of your clothes, you can let go of your desires, attachments, whatever it is, and you can go into that monastery and just be entirely no one and nobody in this entire world, and you'll come out fine. Yeah. Right? That is like the entire anxiety of being is about, oh, what happens if I die, if I don't, you know, if I don't exist? And it's like, well, they'll go and they'll live it, and all of a sudden it's fine. Oh, okay, so now I go back to living. You know, it's not that you stop there and you sit and you're entirely nothing. No, you take back your stuff and you live now. It's a different perspective, and I really appreciate. For me, I'm obsessed with like comparative philosophy, and I love when things overlap between like Stoicism and they do. Yeah, absolutely.
And if we see that, that's another way to unite people. Like, for example, for me, I hate the whole idea of trying to separate people. Like, I get why religion exists, and I'm, you know, obviously I have my religious beliefs, but like, if I don't read other texts and I don't like, of course I'm going to believe whatever I'm told, but then when I read it, I'm like, man, there's some logos in this, there's some serious logos in this, and it unites me with people. Yeah. So like, I have people that profess to be a certain religion here who are just miserable, terrible people. And then I have people that are a different religion who I'm told that I'm supposed to be not liking, but those people are goals, you know, they got like 6 kids, they got some really awesome beards, and it's like they're doing what God, to me, if you don't have a beard, like, you got enough on your face. Yes. Like, you got to have kids and you got to have a beard, you know? So it's like that's part of it, you know? And it's just like, that's where like you're separating from what you're told and you're connecting with what's more important, which is like what people are doing. Like, who do I want to be like, you know? So Yeah.
Thanks, Danny, for your time. We are over
awesome.
time here. Yes, that was an awesome conversation. What's next for Danny?
Well, right now, the biggest thing that I'm working on is my wife is involved with an athleisure company. So they're still in pre-launch, and it's been amazing to see them grow. And she's getting to a point where her sales, if they get past a certain point, she can become a founder. And that would change things forever for us, because we would start getting like 1% of the company's revenue. So I now have decided this month I'm really going to help her with that. But other than that, I got my coaching. We got programs on the website. We do the podcast.
Nice. Check it out. Link in bio. We'll leave all your links down in bio. Yes. Yep. Awesome. Yeah. And good luck to your wife. I hope it works out. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great. You guys. Best of luck with everything.
Best of luck.
Is there anything you want to shout out or say before we wrap up here?
Just just use your adult brain. When you hear things that are use your higher adult brain. Like when you're told things that don't make sense, don't try to just make them make sense. Like figure out why they don't make sense, because chances are there's some truth on the other side of what you are just completely throwing away, and you might be missing out on a bunch of stuff. So just use your adult brain, and when you see things that don't make sense, just try to figure out why.
Amazing. All right. Well, you're here, folks. Check out Danny Vega's links in the bio. You're listening to another episode of A2 The Show, episode 297, traveling around the world, the most diverse podcast, opinions, people all around the world linking together. Check it out. This is how we sign out, and peace. Woo! Very nice.